Think about your home for a moment. You've probably got locks on the door, maybe an alarm, even CCTV, right? But why? Well, because not everyone should be able to walk into your house whenever they like. Now try applying this to your business. Would you hand out the keys to your office, server rooms, comms cabinets to anyone and everyone? Of course not. That's why ISO 27001 Annex A7.2 is all about physical entry controls, making sure that the only people are in your organization are authorized and authorized to access the informational assets and therefore the physical premises that you manage. So what does the standard actually require? Well, it states that secure areas shall be protected by appropriate entry controls and access points. Simple idea, huge impact. So why is it required? Well, because risks aren't only digital. You're going to hear that a lot in these sets of controls. Just as you lock your garden shed to stop kids getting into dangerous tools and dangerous places, you must lock down sensitive areas in your business, both to protect information and to protect people who might just simply wander somewhere that they shouldn't be. Whether it's accidental damage, theft, tampering, or sabotage, the risks are real. And 27001 wants you to demonstrate that you're taking this particular control seriously. So in order again to try and bring this to life and give you some examples of where we've seen this done really well and also really badly, we worked with a company where the main office door we discovered during the initial audit was accessed using a PIN code, a simple code that you've probably seen and maybe even used. It had a series of numbers on there. And when we inquired how often those numbers are changed, well, we were told actually they haven't been changed in living memory of this particular individual who was there. They'd worked with this organization for like 4 or 5 years. And they explained to us that everyone had the code: staff, contractors, even the post person and the cleaner. Ex-employees would have still had access to this code. They all knew the number because, as I've said, it hadn't been changed in many years. That's not access control. That's simply an open invitation. Now, in another organization that we worked with, they had very strong perimeter controls, something we spoke about previously. And when entering the office, visitors were given a visitor badge, which is great. And that visitor badge was used to scan and move around the office and such. Great, all good so far. But the problem was that once that badge had been given to people, in reality, that was just the first step, because no one checked to see, once those people were inside, whether physical secure areas within the office were indeed secure. Now, I recall one visitor who just so happened to be an auditor. They had their badge, and when they asked to be excused to go to the bathroom, they left, they went to the bathroom, they came back 10, 15 minutes later, a little bit flustered, and it was revealed that they'd got slightly lost on their way when they'd exited the bathroom, and they'd managed to find their way into a secure office. And in this secure office, it had equipment, old IT equipment, etc., which simply raised a whole ton of other questions and ultimately led to a minor non-conformity. Something that was easily fixed, but really shouldn't have happened had physical security been thought about. Now, in another example, an ex-employee left a business on bad terms, but they still had their RFID card, their swipe access into the business. So on the exit interview, instead of handing that card in or requesting that card, or even having that card disabled, that control wasn't in place. Nobody thought to deactivate it. Thankfully, they didn't use it. But if they had, they could have walked straight back into that that office. Now, this only came to light during an audit. Consultants like us dig a little deeper than most auditors and most consultants, I guess. But when we ask those questions about exit interviews and the return of cards and such, it's this kind of information that comes to light that could potentially put your physical security at risk. So what is the auditor going to be looking for? What are they going to be looking for in terms of policies and procedures and such? Well, as with many of these particular controls under Annex A7, physical controls, it's more about the physical aspect. So they're going to want to see observed evidence, physical evidence that protection is in place, and it's the layers of protection as well. So expect them to ask for evidence of physical access systems. So they'll want to see do you have PIN codes, and if you do have PIN codes, how often are those PIN codes changed? If you have the RFIDs, the radio frequency identification cards, again, similarly, how are those disabled when someone leaves the organization? Do you have a process in place? They'll want to see things like visitor management. So an auditor may or is pretty much auditing you the moment they walk through the front door, because they're checking out, well, what's the process? Well, I'm a visitor, so am I expected to sign in? Am I given a visitor badge? What actually happens? Do I have to sign in, sign out using an iPad or a tablet system of some description? So good auditors are already assessing you from the moment they arrive. They'll be looking for things like key and pass allocation processes. Doesn't have to be documented, but always better if it is. But they're going to be looking for the process for, again, visitors or new employees coming into the organization. How do you give them access to those secure areas and into the areas that they need access to? Because not all areas are going to be needed, depends upon the size of your business. But imagine someone, for instance, works in the development area or in IT support. Well, they're going to need access to the server rooms or into the development parts of the business, as opposed to someone who works in HR, who will only need access into the areas where HR reside. Of course, this all depends upon the shape and the size of your organization. But these are the considerations, and these are the things the auditor is going to be looking for, that you've thought those things through. They're going to want to see evidence that access reviews are taking place. That's the access rights. So again, as I previously said and just now, if someone joins your organization and they start within the HR department, but then 2 years later you find out that this person's particularly skilled in development or in IT, or has aspirations of working in another function like finance or sales and marketing, that the moment they leave that function, that HR role, that their access to that area, that secure area, is revoked. So the auditor is going to want to see that. The auditor is also going to want to see evidence of incident logs and risk registers as well, making sure that you've actually, first of all, thought about your security, your physical security, and identified any weaknesses, and that's on your risk register. You've considered them, you've tracked them appropriately, etc. And of course, if there have been any incidents, they're going to want to see how you've dealt with those particular incidents and any remediation actions that you've performed. As I said previously on 7.1, and I will continually say, I guess, throughout Annex A7, this isn't about just sitting on your backside and writing a policy or procedure. It's about getting up and moving around the business. Because even in a remote audit, the auditor is going to want to take a virtual tour. So you're going to have to walk around your premises. So what you need to do to make sure that you implement appropriate security controls is Act like an auditor. Go and take a look around. Walk the site. Start from the outside, perimeter controls. How do you gain access to the front door or through the front door? Is it through a swipe card, RFID, where you tap it? Maybe it's a PIN code. Maybe it's a good old-fashioned lock and key. How do people gain access to the site? What about loading bays? If you were in a multi-tenanted building, what about the post? How does the post enter the building, or the post person? And think about emergency exits as well, because when an emergency occurs, many of the doors, they will what's known as fail safe. So if the fire alarm goes off, all the emergency doors will automatically unlock. And we've certainly seen in the past where intruders will use that as a mode of access into a building, using the emergency exits when the doors fail safe. So look out for those weaknesses. Make sure you note them once you've had a walk around, take a tour, and log them down as a potential risk. Add them to your risk register. You'll also need to check policies as well. So there is some policy and procedures you need to think about. So think about your policies around access control, physical access. Does that include logical access as well as IT? But very importantly, that access controls include physical controls, because all too often when we go and look at someone's access control policy, which is a requirement of 27001, it focuses purely on technical access and seems to forget that there's a whole physical world for them to consider as well. And make sure you plan for lost passes as well. If someone loses a pass, what happens with it? Think about the design of the pass. Does it have your company name on there and your address? Perhaps that's not a great thing to have on there, because what happens if someone finds it just outside the door? Then I've got a pass to get into your building. So perhaps just accept that people lose passes. Maybe have a telephone number on there that if someone finds it, they can call and say, look, I found a pass, don't know whose it is, don't know what it is, what should I do with it? But think about what you would do if someone loses a pass. If someone turns up at the reception and says, yeah, my name's Gary, and I work for this person, and yeah, I lost my pass. Could you just buzz me in? Do reception know that they can or shouldn't do that? Or do they know what the process is, whether to hold them in the reception area whilst they get in touch with their line manager, that type of thing? And that kind of process is the kind of thing that will help you massively if the inevitable happens, which is that people lose passes and such. Now, this isn't a difficult control to implement. It's about thinking through those physical aspects, because the key takeaway for this is that physical entry controls are about more than just locked doors. They're about building trust, accountability, and more importantly than anything else, it's about a layered approach to security. If you do it right, it stops unauthorized people getting in while protecting those who belong there. Now, I hope that has been helpful. As I've said, with this is a control that after watching this video, you're going to have to get up and move around and go and take a look. Consultants like us, that's what we do. We go a little bit deeper than maybe other auditors or consultants do. But it really is about being pragmatic and practical. It's compliance without complexity, as we always say. And good luck with it. It's physical security is a whole domain which many people in cybersecurity are unfamiliar with, and there's a whole lot to this. There's a lot more that we could talk about, but for now, keep it simple. Go and see what is out there. So until next time, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to give this a like, a share. Don't forget to subscribe as well. And we'll see you on the next video. Until then, stay well, stay safe, and stay connected. Thanks very much. Bye.